Yeah, I wish she had a better accent, but anyway, you can't hope for British accents everywhere. See, she should be saying recording in progress, but she says progress. So what to do? I guess so long as we understand what she's saying and the recording is happening, it seems to be recording. Yeah.
It's an emptiness in accent, Kabirji.
Indeed, indeed. And prejudice too, of course. It's showing my prejudice very strongly. Okay, let's start with our motivation. And of course, be comfortable, upright if you can be. Have a good posture, because then that helps us to develop proper attention. One of the main problems in samsara is distraction. Distraction comes from not being attentive. And so having a good posture can really help us to be more attentive, actually. Helps us to generate a firm foundation in the body and to be more present in the moment, rather than here and there. You know, often we are neither here nor there in a sense. We're everywhere. Our mind is so fast, you know, flitting from past to future, kind of sideways. So the posture can help us be a little bit more attentive, aware. Then, before we have our quiet period of watching the breath, it is good to also develop more the motivation for our practice. Why are we here? You know, why are we practicing? Why do we bother to do all this? Why do I bother to come here? You know, why do you bother to come? Why do you bother to join online? There could be many reasons. But in this tradition, we encourage people to remember, you know, the deepest of motivations, if possible, the most profound, which is to be engaged in this practice together in order to awaken our awakened heart, in order to develop the great compassion, in order to create the causes for lasting happiness and Buddhahood. Of course, this is a very high aim. So we need to also remember some of the motivating causes which help us to take all of this a little bit, what should we say, seriously, or see how important it is. So first we see how, and this is revision for most of you, we see how important, how amazing it is that we have this human body with this particular kind of mind where we can investigate, and we have the leisure and the time, the circumstances to be able to, you know, investigate an authentic spiritual path, which can have so many long-lasting benefits for ourselves and others. So we have that priceless opportunity. We are not the kind of being who has no ability to understand. We're not in such a situation, you know, where we cannot practice. We have so many conducive circumstances. And also, you know, death and impermanence has not overtaken us completely yet. We're still alive. That's pretty amazing, given all of the circumstances that could cause untimely death, or death anytime. We're going to die. We don't know when. But the teachings say that what is really going to help us now and at the time of death and in the future, even beyond death, is having a mind that is tamed, having a mind which is able to be calm and clear and if possible, kind and compassionate, which is able to be focused and not totally confused and panic-stricken, which can happen when we die because it's a very traumatic time, in a sense. So, to be aware of that and to use our life as a good preparation for that moment, as well as being, of course, a vehicle for helping us in the here and now, but it also helps us in the transitional period, which will come to all of us at some point or other. Of course, this is based on the Buddhist premise that the Buddhist understanding and the experience, it is said, of the great masters, that there is a continuity of consciousness beyond the death of this body. So remembering death and impermanence and preparing for that is important. So making the strong determination to practice, training the mind as much as possible. Then the third thing we remember is that our actions have consequences, a very vast topic. But in general, we need to realize that things don't happen without a cause. So if we have, if we want to experience happiness, good circumstances of all kinds, there need to be causes for that. They don't just happen without cause, spontaneously, or by the grace of God or Buddha. From a Buddhist perspective, it doesn't happen that way. We create the cause. So if we create, virtuous actions, positive actions, there's happy results. If we engage in unwholesome action and do not purify our minds, then the results are suffering of the kind that we see all around us, and many kinds of suffering that we cannot see presently with our eyes. There's a lot of levels of suffering we're not aware of. So we need to be aware of the law of cause and effect, which is actually putting the responsibility in our hands. It's in our hands whether we experience happiness or suffering. So on one hand, this is good news, but for lazy people, like we can be sometimes, it's not very good news. Because we would prefer if we could be saved by somebody, isn't it? That kind of, maybe it's a hangover from our childhood when our parents could save us from, we went to our parents when we needed help. They would soothe us. They would save us from our fears. They would help us do many things, help us learn many things. They would protect us, hopefully. So now that we're adults, we have to do that ourselves, according to Lord Buddha, these kind of teachings. We cannot totally rely on anybody else. So karma, we create the cause for happiness or sorrow. And we can also create the cause, definitely, to meet people who help us a lot, that's for sure. But, in the sense of being able to do things for us, in the sense of lead us to enlightenment without us having to do anything, washing away our sins through their own power or whatever we want, that can't happen. That we have to do ourselves. There has to be some strong cause and effort from our side. So understanding that. And then, of course, the fourth thing to remember is the unsatisfactoriness of cyclic existence, samsara, to see that samsara is suffering, is dukkha, to understand that profoundly. This is a very brutal truth in a way. And I'm repeating it so often because it's so important, for us to remember. We go to a doctor and we think we're not very sick. We maybe have a headache or a stomach problem. But how about if we found a really good doctor who was not the kind of doctor who is just going to, hurriedly give us a pill or something and say, take this, go away, it'll be all right. Just soothing the symptom for a while. How about if we met a doctor who was really concerned about us and who had time and the compassion to look very deeply at our situation? They would find many levels of sickness and disturbance, of imbalance in our bodies. And they would prescribe, a longer term medicine. They would tell us really honestly how sick we are. So in a sense, that's what the Buddha does. He doesn't tell us to, doesn't just give us methods that we can easily find some superficial happiness, some superficial happiness or blissful feeling. He gives us a very stern sort of prognosis, diagnosis, and very powerful medicine, which is not easy to take sometimes. Because he tells us we're suffering, he tells us the cause, which is the disturbing emotions, the ignorance. And these are not easy things to uproot because they're based on long-standing habitual patterns of behavior, which are very difficult to uproot. Especially the ignorance of vidya, not understanding properly how we exist, falsely holding on to a wrong understanding, grasping at an ego, an I, a self. This has been with us since beginningless time, and it's not going to be uprooted easily at all. And of course, the other accretions like anger, attachment, and jealousy, and tendency to be, anxious or worried or depressed, all these other things, we can't just kick them out easily. And often we don't even want to acknowledge them. We pretend they're not there. This accounts for a lot of the restlessness and busyness of our lives. It's trying to camouflage the underlying unhappiness, restlessness, the underlying dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, imbalance, the dis-ease, and the sense of unease. So we have to remember this. This is why we're practicing. This is why we bother to do all this, study these teachings, because they're ultimately helping us to uproot the cause of suffering, and on the way also create conditions for more and more and more happiness and contentment on the path. I hope this is making some sense. Another way to put it is to think this way. And this is, as I said, it's in the beginning quite bitter medicine to take. And we'll be balancing it with something else that I'll be saying. But we have to realize how, according to Lord Buddha, with this ordinary mind we have, ordinary unenlightened mind, which is samsara. Samsara is not this world or some place, some physical place. It's mainly a state of mind, these contaminated aggregates of body and mind that we have. And of course, they make a mess of this world, as they're doing. So anyway, primarily we're talking about body and mind that we have, especially the mind. So given that we have this kind of mind and body, we should not for a moment believe that there is any place that we could go and hide or live where we would be free from suffering, free from dissatisfaction, free from unfortunate inner and outer events. There's no place on this planet, for example, where we can find any kind of perfection, where we'll be able to say, yeah, at last I found a place where I will not have any dissatisfaction. It's just not possible because of the kind of mind we have at the moment. There's no place that's completely safe, no place where we can be lastingly happy. That's the truth. Check it out. We rearrange the furniture at home. We do this and that for our happiness. We entertain ourselves. We go here, there, and everywhere. How satisfied are we? Are we at peace? Are we calm, clear, kind, unruffled, contented people? I would say no. Let alone any kind of real freedom or independence from the effects of our actions. So anyway, these 4 reflections on the preciousness of this human opportunity, the fact of death and impermanence, the law of cause and effect, and the unsatisfactoriness of this samsara, which is dominated by delusion and karma. So this can help motivate us, if we were to reflect on these topics deeply again and again. They help us to take the spiritual path a little bit more seriously, as something to be actually adopted and practiced. Just like a good doctor who is obviously very kind and thorough, whom you begin to trust. And then they tell you what's wrong with you, what the cause is, and they prescribe a lot of medicine. Because you trust the doctor and their analysis, and their patient explanation, you're willing to take the medicine, even though he or she tells you it's not going to taste very nice, and it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen in a hurry. But because of our trust in the doctor and our willingness to, our wish to be sick, our wish to be free of sickness, our wish to be well, our wish to heal, then we're prepared to take the medicine. We want to take the medicine. We become very eager to adopt whatever the doctor advises, to be free of the sickness, which is, it's like we're sick and tired of it. We're fed up with being sick, fed up with being unhappy, depressed, anxious, fearful, competitive, all the other things we go through which make us feel, imbalanced, which make us feel unhappy and restless, which prevent us from experiencing a mind of joy and freedom. We get sick and tired of it, weary of it. It's like we say, I'm sick and tired, I'm fed up with this. I'm not going to put up with it anymore. Like a person who's been sick all their life, chronically sick, and they say, look, I'm fed up with this. It looks like I found a doctor who can help me be free of that. So this involves taking a very serious look at ourselves, a very open, serious, you could say, very no-nonsense look at our minds, at our life, which is not easy. It's not nice to do. We'd rather pretend that things are pretty much okay, when in fact they're not. I hope I don't sound too depressing. Of course, there is also very good news in Buddhism, isn't there? That we have the Buddha nature. We have the potential to wake up. The only reason the doctor gives us medicine is because he knows that we can become well, but the sickness is temporary. The medicine will make us well. So in that sense, from that point of view, being healthy or well is the primary position, is the primordial, is the fundamental, what do we call it now? That's the default mode. We are basically okay. We're basically healthy. Temporarily, we became sick, very sick. But it is temporary, even though it's lasted a long time. It is temporary. That's the good news. And it's better news than the ordinary worldly example of sickness, because some people, one can never really get rid of their sickness in that life. But in terms of our mind, the Buddha nature is something that is pristine and can never be harmed or destroyed. And we all have it, and it can be activated, or it can be uncovered, and we can wake up completely to our Buddha nature and become fully awakened people without suffering of any kind. This is our potential. Yeah. So not to say we can achieve it in this one life, short life, but we can begin to activate it and create causes, which is what we're doing by studying this text and by spending this time together. We are nurturing, watering our Buddha nature, helping to awaken it, helping to remove, if you like to use dualistic language, helping to remove some of the garbage that is covering it. Yeah, so a long motivation today, but worthwhile. If you get bored over the next 2 months because Tushita is closed, then you know what to do, right? You can reflect on these 4. Precious human life, death and impermanence, cause and effect, actions and their consequences, and then the unsatisfactory nature of samsara. And also to balance that, in case you start getting depressed studying these things, you read the teachings on Buddha nature. And there are many texts which we have over the years recommended, many by Pema Chodron, for example, which are very encouraging. They help us, remind us of our potential for waking up, our potential to utilize this challenging life in a very meaningful way. So there's no need to give up or to become despairing. No need at all. Plus, these teachings on compassion, they help us to come out of ourselves in that sense and stop being preoccupied by ourselves all the time, and our own problems, which is easy to do, yeah? Me, my problem, my this, my that, so self-centered. So these teachings can help us also to remember other people, that there are other people on the planet, and we can be of benefit for them a little bit. That helps get us out of the suffocating cocoon of self-concern. Yeah. Is this making any sense? Making any sense? A lot of words, I'm sorry. But these are very important, essential, big, initial teachings. If we ignore them, then we don't really have a good foundation to really benefit from the other teachings, because it all becomes a little bit theoretical and superficial. But I guess what we're trying to say what the Buddhists are trying to say is like one of the things Buddha said. It's like we're in a house that's on fire. You know, if you find yourself in a house on fire, what do? You don't hang around, you know, theorizing. You make for the nearest exit. So he likens samsara, this vicious circle of ignorance and unwholesome action and suffering. He likens that to a burning house. We've got to get out, help others get out as well. Because it's really terrifying and it's horrible. The only reason we might be thinking it's not so horrible is because we might have a kind of decent human life right now, in the sense that we have enough to eat. We never really have to go hungry or without shelter or without some kind of companions or people who can help us. We have all those things, and we're not totally suicidal or something right now. So we might feel life is pretty much okay. But from Buddhist perspective, it is a house on fire because karma, because of death and impermanence, and because we don't know. Like they say, we don't know when we go to sleep at night or whenever, we don't know what's coming next, our next breath or the next life. And the next life, from Buddhist perspective, as many of you know, doesn't have to be a human life. It depends on what karmas are activated at the time of death. So we could be reborn anywhere in countless places, basically divided into 6 realms, but infinite variations of those realms, according to the teachers. So we're lucky if we're born human again, with the opportunities we have now. That's really quite something. So, the point is, it is a very, very challenging situation. And even if we are reborn a human, then again, we have human sufferings. Again, we have to go through a lot of pain and misery, heartache, uncertainty. Uncertainty is a big one. That's horrible for many people, most people. Uncertainty about things. We don't know what's coming next. We'd like things to be very certain. We plan, don't we? The day, the week. Some people try and plan their lives. But there's so much uncertainty, so many things, factors to be taken into consideration. Things change. And in any case, we get old, we get sick, and all of that. Our relationships change, our friends change, people come and go. So much uncertainty, and then there's this lack of a kind of sense of final satisfaction. That's a really hard one. However much we try for satisfaction and happiness, yeah, we sometimes get a little bit, but how long does it last? And then again, we're looking for more. We watch one movie and it's nice, but then we need to watch another very quickly. We have some tasty food, it's nice, but then, yeah, we want more of it. It wasn't quite as nice as, where we had it somewhere else, so we again want to try somewhere else. We want more and better pleasures. A lot of advertising and so forth is about that. And where does that end? There's no final satisfaction with these ordinary methods. However sophisticated they may be, some are very sophisticated in terms of art and literature and this and that. They're very valid in their own place, but where's the final peace, the final satisfaction? final happiness, a lasting sense of freedom and joy. Yeah. So this is worth considering, even though it may make us feel a little sad. It should make us feel sad, of course. It should make us feel very weary of this whole process. It shouldn't make us want to give up, but it should make us feel I want to investigate and create the causes for not only lasting happiness, not only, for happiness in this life, not only for liberation from this vicious circle, but, and as this text is saying, teaching us how to generate a mind that is wishing to benefit others, help, enlighten others as well. Okay, I'll stop talking now. We can spend a little while to just reflect on this motivation. Or if it's been too much, then you just do the breath awareness for a little while. So your mind becomes a little calm, and quiet, clear. We can do that for 7 or 8 minutes, okay? The knees, back. Take care. Make sure you're comfortable. Okay. So we'll look a little bit more at the text. We're in chapter 3. Which this text is called Full Acceptance of the Awakening Mind. And we had got to verse 15, 16. So basically here, Shantideva is again pursuing this extraordinary attitude of wishing to be his body, mind, his positive energy, all of that to be of service, benefit for others. And that when anybody encounters him, for example, as he says in verse 15, may it never be meaningless. May the other person always benefit. Other people always benefit from any kind of encounter with me. You know, whether they just see me from a distance or anything. And let them do whatever they want with me, you know? So long as it doesn't cause them any harm, karmic harm, let them, you know. And verse 16, 17, see that could also be directed partly, it's very significant in the context of him teaching at Nalanda, because remember he was asked to teach by people who wanted to humiliate him, thinking that he was a useless student who just wasted his time doing nothing. I mean, eating, sleeping, and going to the toilet, you know, because they couldn't see him practicing at night, all night. So verses 16 and 17 has significance there. You know, those who encounter me, if in those who encounter me a faithful or an angry thought arises, may that eternally become the source for fulfilling all their wishes. May all who say bad things to me or cause me any other harm, and those who mock and insult me have the fortune to fully awaken. So they were trying to, you know, they were basically mocking him, insulting him behind his back and wanting to humiliate him. So he's saying even in that kind of circumstance, may it, you know, benefit my, whatever they're saying about me or doing, may it cause them to be happy. May it, you know, help benefit them. May it help them fully awaken even. So this is an unusual way of thinking, right? We don't think that way. People who want to harm us or mock us or even say one word against us, we just want to complain and say things in return. He's forgiving them on the spot. And beyond that, he's wishing them well. Ultimate wellness of enlightenment. And then some verses where he is really speaking about how bodhisattvas desire to be whatever others need for their happiness. And we mentioned yesterday how a bodhisattva of certain levels, they have the power to manifest in extraordinary ways for others. So may I be a protector for those without one, a guide for all travelers on the way. May I be a bridge, a boat, and a ship for all who wish to cross the water. May I be an island for those who seek one, a lamp for those desiring light. May I be a bed for all who wish to rest, and a slave for all who want to slay. May I be a wishing jewel, a magic vase, powerful mantras, great medicine. May I become a wish-fulfilling tree and a cow of plenty for the world. Yeah. Slave for all who want a slave, a servant, someone who serves others without arrogance, complaint, without thinking, are they, the same caste as me or lower or higher, should I serve them or not? Yes. Whoever needs help, willing to help in whatever way. It's an extraordinary kind of aspiration. Wish-fulfilling tree, these are mythical things from the past, but basically they're talking about trees or processes, phenomena that had the capacity to bestow great benefit on others of all kinds. Cow of plenty, maybe that has some significance in those times. Even now, of course, many people would like to have a good cow or cows. In places where milk is important and drunk a lot milk products, then a cow is very useful. But a cow of plenty, meaning that which provides for what other people need. So we wish to be an island, a safe refuge for people. And we can do that in so many ways in our life, helping people in various ways, offering advice, taking them out for, a meal or something, relieving their loneliness or their unhappiness in some way or other. That can be done. We can, Pema Chodron says, in simple ways, we become like an island where people can relax and find the strength to go forward. Then he says, just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the lives of all the boundless creatures. Wow. He's wishing to be like the elements themselves, to support others. Think about it. How the earth and space and water supports the countless beings on this planet. For example, the Bodhisattva prays to be whatever people need, beings need for their support, their sustenance. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. And then the next two verses, verses 23 and 24, are two verses that are used a lot. The kind of Pema Chodron calls them the heart of the Bodhisattva vow. They can be recited at any time to remind ourselves and to renew our commitments. Especially if we feel sometimes that we are forgetting or not living up to our vows properly, our intentions, our compassionate intentions, then we can recite these two verses. Just as the previous Sugatas, the Buddhas, gave birth to an awakening mind, just as they successively dwelt in the Bodhisattva practices, likewise, for the sake of all that lives, do I give birth to an awakening mind, And likewise shall I too, successively follow the practices. And the other translation, just as all the Buddhas of the past embrace the awakened attitude of mind, and in the precepts of the Bodhisattvas, step by step, abode and trained, just so, and for the benefit of beings, I will also have this attitude of mind. And in those precepts, step by step, I will abide and train myself. And there's some good commentary here by Pema Chodron. I'll read it. It's very nice. And then we can have some discussion possibly. Step by step is important here. Even the fully awakened ones trained initially step by step. And we follow their example. Since this vow can be easily broken by one harsh word or flash of anger, we would obviously be wise to be patient with ourselves and give up hope of always getting it right. So we can renew our intention to stay open again and again and again. Every morning, before I get out of bed, I recite these 2 verses 3 times, then I start my day. There are 3 approaches to working with the Bodhisattva vow. This is nice. Our commitment can be made with the attitude, 3 kinds of attitude, of a king or queen, a boatman or ferryman, a boatman or someone who is on a ferry, a ferryman, or a shepherd. These images represent ways to go forward realistically, step by step, given our current abilities. At the level of a king or queen, we work on ourselves first. Although our specific intention is to benefit others, we know this is only possible if we ourselves wake up. So anyone who works in the helping professions know how easy it is to lose one's patience or feel aversion. Soon becomes obvious that we can't do the work of benefiting others until we've put our own kingdom in good working order. So the queen works on themselves first and then goes ahead, leads people. The next is the ferryman or the boatman. Here we find ourselves in the boat, same boat with all sentient beings, crossing the water together. Like me, all beings experience themselves as the central character in life's drama. They're enslaved by attachments and aversions, hopes and fears, like me. No one wants to experience physical or emotional pain any more than I do. We all want to feel safe and free from fear. So with this as the basis of our Bodhisattva training, we reach out beyond our self-centered version of reality and bring others into our lives. When our own depression or resentment arises, it becomes a stepping stone to understanding the darkness felt by others. If we have insomnia, toothache, or burn, or cancer, instead of making us retreat into our own little world, it becomes the basis for empathy and loving kindness. So it's like one feeling this togetherness with others, and we all go towards enlightenment together. Then the next image, the shepherd, represents what we generally think of as real compassion. Just as shepherds put the welfare of their sheep before their own, we aspire to put others before ourselves. This is how most of us think we should work with our Bodhisattva commitment, but truthfully, not many of us feel we can do it. Of course, we have been in situations when we can do it spontaneously, we've given our bus seat to an elderly person, or we may have stayed up all night with a troubled friend. Parents are doing it all the time. They'll even run into traffic to pull their infant to safety. But so we can proceed on one of these three models. A king who goes ahead, having worked on themselves, or as a boatman, we're all going together, or as a shepherd who, the image of the shepherd, of course, is that a shepherd doesn't rest or go to sleep until all the animals have been brought back to the corral, to the pen, to their place. Even if one sheep is missing, the shepherd will go out, search for that sheep and bring it back. Then the shepherd will rest. So that kind of attitude. But wherever we are, we go step by step. Yeah. So there's so much here, so much. We can have a little discussion if you want. Vishad has joined us. Some people have left, I think. Yeah. Nice haircut, Vishad. I think you had a haircut. Merit haircut. Oh, Bangalore haircut.
I got it from Merit. Kabirji, is this the last session before the vacation?
Yes, technically. But I have a feeling we're not only going to have something on the 9th from Jimmy Neal, probably, and something on the 14th for our Tibetan Buddha Jayanti. But now and again, probably when I feel bored or unhappy, I will organize Zoom sessions. Maybe nothing at the Tushita itself in person, but the Zoom habit dies hard, which is just
good.
well, because there's 2 people here at Tushita with me, and there's 5 of you online. So it's we reach out to more people if we're on Zoom. So there is some benefit with this technology. So, any question, Utkarsh? Anything you would like to, anything not clear? We have a relative beginner here at Tushita. I'm just asking him. You don't have to say anything. Was it clear? Kind of clear? Hard to digest? Easy to digest? Sorry? No. Yeah. It takes time. The things I said at the beginning were rather tough medicine, but they are very important reflections. It makes the whole process of developing compassion more meaningful, yeah? Because we really understand the situation we're in. It's not just compassion for someone who has a headache or is a bit sick. We feel compassion because people are in a dreadful situation in samsara, actually. We just don't realize it. We're not feeling the heat of the burning house yet. We're somehow numb. We've numbed ourselves with our entertainments, our pleasures, our capacity for self-deception and avoidance. So we don't see the difficulties of the situation. Or we see it sometimes and we just don't want to face it. It's too painful. So we distract ourselves. and many forms of mundane and spiritual, so-called spiritual distraction, according to Buddhism. You know, we might get attracted to certain experiences we have in meditation. This is again and again being emphasized in the Buddhist teachings, especially the Bodhisattva teaching, that don't get sidetracked by the pleasures of meditation. You know, we can experience a lot of satisfying, blissful even experiences. They speak of experiences of bliss, clarity, non-conceptuality that can come in meditation, but they're just considered as experiences. And we're asked not to get caught up in them, because if we do, we get sidetracked, we lose the compassionate attitude, and we get addicted to them. We lose the sight of the higher goal, which is to be liberated and to liberate others. Which is easy, right? We have life is painful. If it's like a burning house, then of course, if we're going to be happy, if we have a state where we're feeling very happy and blissful and calm and clear, that's understandable. But if we get trapped there, then we're just creating cause for a kind of a godlike rebirth, according to Buddha. And the God realms are not considered useful because there's too much. Well, in one of the God realms, there's a lot of competitiveness and envy in the Asura realm. And in the higher God realms, there's so much bliss of meditation and so forth that the beings just use up all that karma having their bliss, and then they have to fall back into lower realms, some, you know, like human or animal or whatever. And that's very painful for beings who've been used to that blissful state. So we are encouraged in the Buddhist teachings again and again not to get sidetracked by the blissful experiences that can come in meditation. Plus, when we have those experiences, then we don't want to come out of meditation. Coming out into the real world, so-called, is very painful. It's like people who get addicted to drugs or you know, any other addiction. Then when we have to, you know, at some point we have to let go of the addiction, it's very painful. So yeah, that's something I think worth knowing about. It's easy to get high in various ways, but then we have to then face the lows. So it's better, the Buddha says, to learn how to cut the very root of our dissatisfaction. And on the way, develop great compassion, which gives us tremendous inner strength and the ability to also be of great benefit for others. Does that make sense? It's a painful truth, because we'd like to experience a lot of happiness and bliss and not have to come out of meditation or whatever. But these things are, you see, temporary experiences. But they are helpful in one way, in that they begin to open up for us, maybe begin to suggest to us the potential of the mind to have good experiences and not just painful ones. So, for example, in the Buddhist teachings on calm abiding or shamatha, if we fully perfect shamatha, it leads to a very blissful, peaceful state of mind. Very amazing. But we're asked not to stop there, that is not the main purpose. The main purpose of shamatha, perfecting it, is to then use that very stable, blissful mind to meditate on reality, ultimate truth. To meditate on the lack of intrinsic existence, lack of inherent existence. That's the reason. You know, especially in the 3 higher trainings, they speak of ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. So the concentration of the shamatha mind, that has to be used, utilized to develop wisdom. Otherwise, there's no liberation. It's just a temporary, blissful, happy experience. And it can be lost in succeeding lives. So the keys really are this wisdom and compassion. They help us to achieve our own purpose and the purpose of others. Everything else is just a temporary experience. However, pleasant. Anything regarding the text or anything that has been spoken of today? Feel free. Naveenji?
Basically, the last bit you were saying about wisdom, I mean, so in some ways, wisdom is accessed through compassion, is what you're suggesting. But how, I was just reading Yongir Rinpoche's book on Bardos, on death and becoming. And so
your question is confused. Do you have a clear question?
No, I haven't reached the question yet. So, so concentration and compassion. So we access the wisdom of compassion through concentration, is what you're trying to suggest? Wisdom of compassion? I mean, wisdom becomes in some ways an end in itself, but it also is a vehicle for us to cross. And in that sense, it becomes a means.
Yes, wisdom is a means to achieve liberation. And if it's united with compassion, it becomes, with the great compassion, bodhicitta, it becomes a means to attain Buddhahood. Can't attain Buddhahood with wisdom alone. We can attain our own personal liberation, but not Buddhahood. That requires the great compassion, because it opens the mind to working for the benefit of all beings, which is what Buddhas do. And wisdom and compassion help each other, of course. If we know that we are not inherently this or that, or inherently, who we think we are, then there's more ability to see how we are related, how we exist in relationship to others. Others become more important when we realize our lack of our own intrinsic inherent existence. So, and then the more compassion we have, then the more it also acts to eat away at our sense of being very, very special and somehow independently existing. So although we need to do specific meditations for compassion and specific meditations to develop wisdom, they do help each other. The more compassion we have, it does help with the wisdom side, and vice versa, for very good reasons. There's nothing mysterious about it, really. And our compassion should be imbued with wisdom. If we don't have enough wisdom realizing emptiness, our compassion can easily become exhausted and frustrated when we aren't able to achieve what we want quickly, or whatever. But if we have wisdom of emptiness, then we realize things in a totally different way. We have a different perspective on ourselves and others. Yeah. So it has to be wise compassion.
Can you please elaborate the last bit a little more, Kabirji?
About Yeah, because if we only have compassion and then we find we can't help people because, you know, I am not able to help them, we have a very solid sense of the self, solid sense of others, attachment to our compassionate activity. Of course, we're going to have disappointment. The whole point of wisdom is to destroy our attachment by showing us that there is no inherently existing person or action or object of our compassion. Everything is dream-like, like an illusion. You know, we don't, if we begin to analyze, we cannot find any inherently existing person, can we? So we have a more, what shall I say, balanced, a more relaxed attitude towards everything. You know? There's no holding on strongly in an uptight way to anything. So then compassion can, if you know, work much more effectively because there's no big deal being connected with it all the time. Big deal mind, what we sometimes call, you know, making a big tamasha or high about things, that leads to anxiety and expectation, hopes and fears. If we have realization of, a bit of realization of interdependence and wisdom, we don't get hung up on, you know, what we're doing or on results, because we realize things are interdependent. And so we have a lot more openness, spaciousness of mind. We don't become fanatics, in other words. We can be very fanatical otherwise, can't we? In our compassion, in whatever we do, we can become kind of obsessed and you know, like a fanatic. But the wisdom helps us avoid that because it loosens our whole sense of me, you know. It's just a more fluid process. Hard to describe in words. We have to just remember those moments when we are more relaxed and open, and how much easier at those times it is to be spontaneously helpful and compassionate. Whereas when we are full of hope and fear based on holding on to me, what others will think of me, am I doing this right? What do they think? Am I dressed properly today? Blah, 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 blah. All these things connected with me. When that's loosened, it's much easier, isn't it? And when it's not, when we're full of hopes and fears, then the compassion doesn't flow. It can't. You say what I'm saying? It's like a pipe that is blocked. You can't have the proper flow of water. Too many knots. Am I doing this right? Am I not doing this right? Should I, shouldn't I? All this stuff comes from holding on to an I, a me, a mine. So obviously, if we have more experience of emptiness, interdependence, we'll be more relaxed. And so then much easier to help others when we're relaxed. Would you agree? And when you're uptight and upset and, oh, am I doing it right? Are they going to accept my help? Should I, you know, all of that stuff, all of the hesitation that comes when we are very self-preoccupied, vulnerable, you know? How much should I help them? How much should I help them? What should I give them? What should I not give them? All of this stuff. What do you think? I need some feedback from you. This is not meant to be a lecture.
So the difference between emptiness and nihilism is, for
Between
me,
what? Between what?
Nihilism and emptiness is perhaps compassion for me.
Infinite?
Nihilism.
Nihilism and
emptiness.
Yes.
Is the recognition of interdependence.
Exactly. Things are interdependent. That's why they're empty, and vice versa. But nihilism is saying nothing matters, nothing exists really. So nothing matters. There are people who misunderstand emptiness to mean nothing exists, and that's not the meaning. Meaning is nothing exists intrinsically or inherently from its own side, but everything exists dependently, dependent on other factors. That is incontrovertible. So people who mistake emptiness for nihilism, they are really lost. And they are then in danger of thinking that nothing matters, and giving up cause and effect and all of that. Whereas cause and effect can only work because things are empty. Things can only have an effect on each other because things are not inherently existing. Because inherent existence means that things are kind of locked. They don't have an effect on other things or can't be affected. They are intrinsic. You know, the letter A, which seems on the blackboard so inherently the letter A, that we forget that it's made up of all these causes and conditions, including our labeling consciousness. We see it as somehow real A. So real person, real enemy, real friend, real everything from its own side. But then we say, yeah, there is a letter A, but we understand how it exists. We're not saying there's no letter A. There is a letter A for us who understand it. Now, there's no letter A for an Amazonian tribes person who's just come out of the jungle. For him, there's just a shape which may remind him or her of something else. But for us, it's a letter A. But there's no inherently existing letter A. But that's not to say there isn't a letter A that functions. I mean, how much can we read or study if there's no letter A's? You know, of course, there's letter A, B, C, and all the rest of it. There's a laptop in front of me. It's not an inherently existing laptop at all. Not one atom of it is inherently existing from its own side. But there's a dependently arising, functioning laptop in front of me. That's why I'm able to communicate with you. To say that it's empty and therefore not existing is just ludicrous. It's nonsense. It's a complete misunderstanding. It's a dependent phenomenon. It functions, it works, so it exists. We accept it. But if you try and point to where is the inherently existing laptop, analyze it, it's analytically unfindable. You can't find a laptop from its own side, just as you can't find a letter A from its own side, inherently existing. It depends on many factors, right? Parts, causes, conditions, and then the mind that labels it. Essentially, the mind that labels it, very important. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
We may not understand it at the deepest level, but I think you're understanding it on this level, which is very important. And this helps us when we're dealing with people who are behaving badly, for example, that we realize there's no inherently existing badly behaved, sinful, evil person. They're behaving that way because of causes and conditions, infinite causes and conditions. First of all, they're not an inherently existing person the way we think they are. And then their anger or their bad behavior is not inherently existing. It's dependent on many other factors. So then we understand. It diffuses the situation for us. We see how it's not some kind of conspiracy against me, you know. Me who's also conceived to be so solid from its own side. Even that is deconstructed. So then it's just like, it's almost like a big cosmic joke, what's going on in that sense. No inherently existing harm, no inherently existing person. We just understand things as the play of dependent arising. Just illusory life.
Kabirji, then in that sense, the heart of wisdom, the recognition of emptiness and interdependence becomes compassion. And so would be, in that sense, the heart of ethical considerations becomes compassion again.
The wisdom helps the compassion, but if you just have the wisdom, it doesn't necessarily lead to this overarching bodhicitta mind. the practitioners of the basic path, Shravakayana, the Theravada practitioners, as we say, they study, they practice ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. Wisdom is key to helping them be free of samsara. But because they don't practice the great compassion all the time in the bodhicitta mind, they have no real, impetus or desire to come back into samsara again and again to help others. They go off into nirvana. They are then inaccessible to sentient beings. Their main purpose is to be free of samsara, which they see as a burning house. It's disgusting. They're weary of it. The bodhisattvas are also weary of samsara, but they also want to save people from the burning house because of the compassion they've been generating at least an aspiring level from the beginning of the path. You see, it makes a big difference. So of course, if we understand wisdom, we do have less, of course, self-grasping. So there is more openness to others, but it's nothing like the great compassion bodhicitta that the genuine Mahayanist develops. But of course, there's going to be more kindness and sympathy in somebody who has given up clinging to themselves. Of course, there will be. But bodhicitta and great compassion in Mahayana is something very special. When you begin to study it and what needs to be done to awaken it, it is not just the kind of openness that comes through being less uptight. You see what I mean? It's something special added on. It's like having a car. A car is made with a certain kind of engine, and it'll function as a car, but then you might have a very, very, very advanced special version or something like a rocket, which is even, much more powerful, and, all the rest of it can go further, can take you out of the, the gravitational pull of this planet. So bodhicitta is a bit like that. It takes us out of our normal realm completely, the whole power of bodhicitta. Not an ordinary car. It's like a rocket. Not a good analogy. That's all I could think of right now.
What kind of realm, Kabirji? I didn't get the last part. How does bodhicitta takes us out of the normal realm?
It's just a way of saying that it's really a highly unusual state of mind that isn't going to be generated automatically just by having the wisdom. Wisdom alone, if you're only practicing wisdom, you're not going to have bodhicitta automatically arise as a concomitant factor, according to...
Can you talk more about this state, Kabirji, the state that you're talking about, the state of mind?
Which state of mind?
That is outside of normal, the bodhicitta state of mind.
All I meant was that bodhicitta is a very unusual state of mind that most of us have not developed yet, and very few people develop. That's all I meant. And since I have no experience of it, I can't talk about it. But they say it's like, having even more compassion for all beings than a mother has for her only child. So, what do you say about that? You might get some understanding of that if you are a mother who is very fond of their only child. But even more than that, the Bodhisattva has compassion for all beings. So how do we relate to that? That's very difficult. And they have more compassion because they have more understanding of the suffering and more understanding of the potential of the child. That's why they have more compassion. They know that child, all beings can become Buddhas, but they also see how all beings are stuck, in the quagmire of ignorance, attachment, aversion. That's what makes them so compassionate. They see the total picture, whereas a mother or father have a limited view of the world, limited view of suffering, limited view of their child, compared to the Bodhisattva. It's like a good doctor and a really good, wonderful doctor and a third-grade doctor. Third-grade doctor sees very little of the sickness of the patient, and maybe in a big hurry and doesn't care that much anyway for the patient. Whereas a really good, unusual doctor not only cares for the patient, but has the wisdom to see the sickness and the compassion to patiently help the sick person to get well. So it's a big difference, that state of mind. As you can see from the verses, arahats don't, people who want nirvana for themselves don't think in this way. And it's okay. Buddha taught that path also for people who aren't capable of thinking in this way. We're not all capable of thinking and acting in this way. That's why there are different vehicles within Buddhism. We can't all become bodhisattvas in this life. Some people are content with their own liberation. Take it. That's also good. One less person in samsara, very good. One person has achieved their personal freedom from suffering, it's good. But nothing compared to what a bodhisattva is doing. Thank you, Ashwin. Yeah. Hope you enjoy your break, Kabirji. Thank you. Thank you. No break for me, actually. Less teaching, more admin coming up. Okay, we also have someone called Olivia who joined late, so welcome. Maybe you're from another country, so you are in a different time zone. Any questions from here? From Tushita, where we have 2 people still. 8 minutes past 8. Anushri, anything? You'll have to speak up. Huh? Non-conceptuality means not having any thoughts or images in the mind. Scary, huh? No thoughts, no images, non-conceptual, hard to even imagine what it might be. Direct perception of whatever. Yeah, clarity, non-conceptuality, bliss. These events happen for people who've gone a little way down the meditation path. But they are always, the teachers say, let go of them, don't cling to them. It will just hinder you.
Kabirji?
Hello.
So from you just mentioned that, someone who has achieved bodhicitta, for them, they'll first have to realize wisdom, right? Because if they don't realize wisdom, how can they have the real bodhicitta, the real compassion? Because once you actually realize that wisdom, you'll have more compassion for people who have not realized it, right?
It's said that, yeah, for a fully qualified bodhicitta, of course, you have to have the wisdom. You don't enter the bodhisattva stages, the bhumis, without direct perception of emptiness. You can still be a bodhisattva, but you'll not be what's called an Arya bodhisattva. Arya, or the high level, holy bodhisattva, from the first bhumi onwards, that is only accomplished when we have the direct realization of emptiness. But you could still be a bodhisattva without the direct realization of emptiness. But it would be not yet a powerful Arya bodhisattva. Once you are an Arya bodhisattva, then one's abilities really become quite extraordinary due to that wisdom, direct wisdom. And then the path then is a refinement of that wisdom, and more powerful and amazing activities arising due to the shrugging off and more veils of subtle ignorance and obscurations. So some say, yeah, a lot of wisdom has to be generated first before one can become a bodhisattva at all, let alone the Arya level. But some say that you can develop bodhicitta without having a very, very deep understanding yet of the wisdom. But the more wisdom we have, the more it helps obviously. Because otherwise that wisdom, that compassion is kind of blind. Without wisdom, compassion and everything else is a little blind. Wisdom gives the true understanding of circumstances. Plus, it said the bodhisattvas realize emptiness properly. They have even more compassion because they realize how it is possible to realize emptiness and how sad it is that beings are suffering so much because of clinging, self-grasping ignorance. They could realize emptiness, but beings are so caught up in self-grasping ignorance and therefore creating causes for their own suffering more and more. So the bodhisattvas feel even more sad and compassionate when they see that their own understanding is there. It's like someone who has got, recovered from a disease, right? But you see all these other people who are still suffering from that disease. Realizing they could, if they wanted, if they made the effort, they could be free of the disease, but they're not doing it. Or they can't do it for now. You feel very sad. Because oneself has recovered. It's possible to do. Imagine if 3 people in a family had COVID badly, the parents and one child. And the son or daughter gets free of COVID through putting effort or whatever, and sees the parents are still so sick. They feel very, very sad for the parents. Maybe the parents are just not making the effort to properly take the medicine or whatever. So the child feels very sad for them, realizing it is possible to be free of the disease. So it's a bit like that. Bodhisattvas see how sentient beings could, with some effort, realize emptiness. But they're not doing it for many reasons. Most people have no access to authentic teachings anyway. So then beings are going to continually suffer without that understanding.
Some effort, you say, Kabirji?
Some effort, a lot of effort, whatever. Yeah, depends. For some people, it's quicker than others, right? Depending on their karmic inheritance. Some people just need a few teachings and they have enough merit and so forth to realize emptiness without too much difficulty. Because emptiness isn't the most difficult of phenomena to understand. It's a slightly hidden phenomenon. It's aspects of karma, which are deeply hidden phenomena, much more difficult to understand than emptiness, apparently. Only Buddhas can see certain aspects of karmic law. But emptiness, we can understand. What else? We can do a little more since it's our last whatever session, official session. We may have unofficial secret sessions. And I probably won't have the Maitreya statue behind me in those sessions. Maybe sometimes I will. Actually, it's a good place to hang out in the summer. Very cool. Thank you.
Are we chanting the compassion mantra today, Kabirji?
Yeah, we were going to, weren't we? Shouldn't we? What do you think?
Yes, it will be good. Others, it's not too late for others.
Yeah, we should be for Rinpoche and His Holiness. And, yeah. Huh? Yeah.
So there are 3 kinds of phenomena, right?
Manifest, slightly hidden, and deeply hidden. Yeah. Yeah.
Slightly obscure.
Those, the same thing. Yeah.
So when you
No, I already have. So a manifest phenomena is this cup in front of me. Easy to understand, there's a cup there, even though we may not understand the emptiness of it. So the emptiness of it is a slightly hidden phenomena. By analyzing and studying, we can understand what's meant by the emptiness of the cup. But why it is that I may suffer a certain sickness or some good or bad event in my life, why I am suffering that without apparent cause, only a Buddha knows, or some very highly realized being. That's deeply hidden. Because we could be experiencing something which is a result of something we did millions of lives ago. So obviously, that's deeply hidden. Huh?
It's an example of the same way, right?
Your what?
Birth date, video.
Yeah.
So the same phenomena can be like an evident phenomena for, let's say, my mother, but it will be an obscure or a slightly obscure.
Slightly hidden for someone else, yeah.
Because I have to.
Yeah, but this is the emptiness is more difficult than that. Yeah, that's a very gross level of slightly hidden. It's not what's meant in the teachings. Actually, that's a manifest phenomenon, because all you have to do is look at your Aadhaar card or something and one can find out what your birth is. So that's not even a slightly hidden phenomenon, according to this classification. Understand? That's easy to know. The government knows your date of birth. Many people know your date of birth. It's very simple, but not many people know emptiness. And only Buddhas know deep aspects of karma. Okay, we'll do some compassion mantra now. Since it's been requested and since it was also advertised, so we should go by what we advertise. Otherwise, we'll get punishment from various sources. You're happy if we just do it quietly, or are you attached to the sound of it, Naveen? Navinji?
No, it's fine. If you can do it quietly together, it's nice.
Yeah. So the mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum, and which embodies the compassion of all the Buddhas. So we should motivate, recite it for a little while, not mainly for our own sakes, although it will help us as well, of course, but we want to ensure the existence, the health, the long life of two particularly important teachers for us, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as well as our own spiritual guru of this center, Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, whose Bodhisattva, Buddha-like activities for others are so important for this world and for so many students. So we recite in order to purify our own mind, develop compassion. And these are things that you could say please, are most pleasing to the Buddhas and to the Gurus. It gives them the kind of incentive to live long and abide among us and teach us. So that's in brief, very briefly, why we are reciting the mantra. So you can imagine Avalokiteshvara in front of you, Buddha of compassion, Lord Buddha, source of light. Yeah. You should feel it's an enlightened source, a fully awakened being, a fully awakened Buddha. That will be beneficial. Om Mani Padme, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Imagine that Avalokiteshvara dissolves into us and feel a sense of oneness with the compassion of all the Buddhas. And dedicate for the happiness and welfare of all sentient beings, especially that we generate compassion and the precious mind of Bodhisattva, and the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, His Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and all the other great teachers benefiting sentient beings with their lives, their teachings. And may we also become wish-fulfilling for others, meaningful for others. Centers be beneficial for students. May Tushita especially be more and more beneficial for many students. Okay, good. It's 8:30. So good session today, 2 hours. Twice as long, more than twice as long as psychotherapists give you. And, no better therapist than Shantideva. So we're very fortunate. I'm fortunate to be able to act as a kind of a conduit between Shantideva and all of us. Due to the kindness of our teachers. Okay then, so I'm going to stop the recording.